Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes and it's match day. I'm delighted to be here with Chris McElwain, where we are facing Aberdeen at Pittodrie, 90 minutes. We're going to be doing the pre-match, the half-time and the post-match. And we'll be talking about everything, starting off obviously by the fact that we've got the starting 11, Chris.
Yes.
We'll be bringing it up and we'll be having a look through that, any surprises, anything you would have done differently. Obviously, where we are at this match day 2 of the SPFL campaign, the Premiership campaign, and only 3 teams can get a 100% record in their first 2 games. That's Celtic, Hibs and Hearts. Let's see how it goes today. There's the team, Chris. I'll tell you something before we get on to the analysis of that team. We did a thing. We did an analysis, if you like, a rundown, a breakdown, a ranking of this season's jerseys. And I'll tell you, it's gone down so well. We should have done it before. We've been doing this show for 8 years. We should have been doing it for 8 seasons. But that would have cost us a pretty penny to buy all the jerseys. But we will be doing it from now on. And I'll tell you what, once you, I think, really analyse it and really look at it, that home jersey is brilliant. It's a cracker. I know you're modelling it. So is Rio Hatate, incidentally. I know that your eyes might have been kind of diverted to Chris, but Rio's wearing it well. The tartan looks brilliant. I've heard of a lot of people saying, the black lines on the shoulders. And you know what? I think it works. I think it looks absolutely great. It's a phenomenal top. I just wanted it without the sponsor. It looks so much better.
It does.
Without the sponsor, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I mean, the one I bought, I went for the 2 editions, the standard edition and the kind of match one. I've never been one for these kind of match edition jerseys, but I thought, you know what? I'll try this one just to see. I wanted to see what the difference was because I quite liked last year's home top. And so I went for the match one, which only comes with a sponsor, sadly. And it is a shame because actually sponsorless for me is usually the way to go. I agree with you largely. I really enjoyed the show, first of all. I was actually commenting along and talking to some of the guys as it was being broadcast. And it seemed to go down very, very well. Felt a bit sorry for Quinny. He seemed to get the short straw, unfortunately, with the coleslaw top, as it seems.
He wore it well. It did. It looked better on him than it did on Yang.
To be fair, yeah. And, I've seen a few different supporters. I've seen a lot of kids wearing it, actually. And we've now seen the away top on a broadcast match as well. And I think, taking it in isolation, I don't think the tops are dreadful, right? And I think, some people like them more than others. I do think the home top stands out as being one of the ones that's nice. And I agree with you. I think the tartan element to the hoops, and I'm not a big fan of messing with the hoops, but I think the tartan element, it's pretty good. It's a little bit of heritage. It's the Celtic tartan, and it doesn't take away from the essence of the top. So I do quite like the home top. I have to admit, I'm a little bit different to you. I don't like the stripes. I'm not a fan of stripes. I'm just not sure stripes and hoops go together personally. But I appreciate it's a personal thing. But yeah, I thought the This Is Acsom show on Friday was great and really enjoyed watching it. And yeah, would love to see more of that. Actually prompted me to go and pick up your book again and take a look back and look at some of the older jerseys. There's one thing
Seamless.
Gets you a little bit nostalgic, though. It gets you a little bit nostalgic to go back and look.
Just seamless promotional. People will be saying that this was all to do with promoting that book. It isn't. It's all about promoting Celtic. Here we go. There's
I don't
Rio.
get commission, by the way. Just point that out. I don't get commission for this. There's no incentive.
Neither do I. There's Rio Hatate. Starting 11. Here we go. It's Schmeichel in goals. Alistair Johnston at right back with Kieran Tierney at left back. Love how that rolls off the tongue. Centre back partnership, Carter Vickers and Scales. We've got the midfield making up, or made up rather, of McGregor, Hatate and Nygren, as it was last week. Forrested Almeida, you'll notice there is one change, and that is that Yang has dropped to the bench alongside Sinisalo, Trusty, McKeown. We've got Yamada, Kenny, Engels, Bernardo, and Tony Ralston. I'm going to ask you in the comment section, lots tuning in, how do you feel about that starting 11? What's your thoughts about the changes that have been made? But before we get into this, and I don't care if anybody says that he's my favourite, I'm going to bring up a comment, and it's from a certain gentleman called Jungle Lion. And the reason that he's coming up is because he never told anybody, but I kind of sneakily found out online that it's his 60th. So a massive big shout out to Jungle Lion. And I wish I could be there to celebrate it with you. Have a wee sherbet on us. And one of these days, we're going to get into your den in that back garden of yours and do some kind of live event or maybe even a live stream. 3 points today, says Jungle Lion. And a couple of players next week. The whole atmosphere will change. Yes, it will. It absolutely will. And I don't think that's anything to do with entitlement. I mean, you comment, and particularly when you're commenting on every nuance of Celtic, Chris, on a daily basis, you comment on the here and now. You say, if this happens, great. If this doesn't happen, then that will be the reaction to that. But in the here and now, no one can deny that we would have preferred more bodies in the building. You're looking at Jamesy Forrest starting today. And I'm going to start with him because obviously Yang has dropped to the bench. I think deservingly so. I think he was the worst Celtic player against St Mirren. Yep. Did not look as though he was going to put his body on the line. Did not get behind the defence other than on one occasion when we were called back for a foul. And he was poor. And it's as simple as that. So during the week, Chris, I looked at all the different permutations. I looked at what we could do with the shape. I even said, you know what, let's not even play with wingers because AJ and KT... Sorry, Claire, you don't like me abbreviating their names with acronyms. Alistair Johnston and Kieran Tierney created more than the wingers did. And the way I was looking at it is, you know what? You could potentially play a 3-5-2. You could potentially do that with the personnel that we have. You could play a 4-4-2 with the personnel that we have. We've not done it, and I'm not surprised. Jamesy Forrest starts, and there's going to be talk all season about 17th consecutive season, etc., etc. I'm just looking at Forrest. I'm looking at how he tore it up against Aberdeen last season, and I can understand, even without Yang's performance last week, I can understand why Forrest starts today, Chris.
Absolutely. He's a player that I would have absolute trust in coming in. I think he's got an element to his game that I think shows his maturity now as a player, as a senior player, as a tenured professional. I think he shows that game intelligence when he plays now, and I think we really need that in this system because we know we're in for a hard slog today. Big physical team, so we need that element of guile. We need that element of someone who carries that bit of experience into a match, that gamesmanship, that game management that I think Jamesy Forrest brings. So absolutely no fears about James Forrest. It's interesting, I was fortunate enough again to speak to James Forrest up at Celtic Park last week.
That's a first name drop. First name drop. Chris gets it in 7 minutes.
There'll be many more, but it was. But what was really interesting, I look at Jamesy Forrest, and he might be sitting there and he's got a bit of facial fuzz. I still look at him as just a young player. He's just still got that element. Still looks in great condition, by the way. But when you listen to him talk, there's an assurance there now. There's kind of assurance, an assuring presence. He's very comfortable in his own skin. I don't think you would have always said that about him when you see him in interviews. He's very unassuming, very humble. But there's almost a steeliness that comes with age and experience. And I thought he spoke very well. He sounds like he's absolutely still got the motivation to come in and play a big part this season. He's very aware that he is in the twilight years of his football and Celtic career. But I think he's just going to enjoy it. And you know what? The fact that he's coming in, I just think, he continues to be a fantastic option for us to have. With that said, and we don't want to focus too much on recruitment. We do need reinforcement on the wings. I agree with your assessment on Yang last season. I think it is fair that he drops out. The one element I think a winger has to show, particularly on a Celtic team, is that bravery to go and try and take your man on. I think they have to be that little bit of a risk taker. They have to be prepared to go and try and win those one-on-one duels with the defenders and make something happen for our other attacking players. And I felt as though Yang's performance, he wasn't able to show that element of his game. And that's a shame because we know he's got it in his locker. But I think it's right that James Forrest comes in today. Other than that, not too surprised with the lineup.
No, not too surprised myself, actually, but I will go through them individually. The thing with Jamesy Forrest is obviously he was up there at the press conference. He was chatting to yourselves. He was chatting to the mainstream. From that press conference, having been in the room, as well as his facial fuzz, what did you take from the way he was talking about the end of his career? The fact that he was scared to be coming to that point when he's going to be 35 years of age, and at this moment in time, obviously that will mean that he'll be without a club. Do you think that, for all the reasons that you've already said, that James Forrest should remain at the football club, and on a yearly basis we look at his fitness? Because I'm looking at his career just now. Last 4 seasons. Last season he made 33 appearances. We go back 28, 23, 32. Not all from the start. Obviously, the minutes are diminishing with age, and that's just natural unless you're Ibrahimovic, Ronaldo kind of level of athletes who, incidentally, you know, another big thing about James is he's suffered a lot of injuries over the 17 campaigns. I just think that people like that, Kieran Tierney, Callum McGregor, Tony Ralston, these are players that they bring something more than minutes to the team. And it's not an old pals act, Chris. It absolutely isn't. But if you've got one or two players who are of that ilk, right, and they're able to, embed a culture in the new recruits. So we brought in 7 players this summer. We generally bring in 7, 8, 9, sometimes more players in a summer. You've got to embed that culture and that winning mentality into players who ordinarily might just turn up and, you know, it's all about getting a win here or there. It's not always about winning every single game. And I think that level of James, what he brings to the party is almost as important as to what he brings on the park, Chris. What's your vibe? What was your vibe in that room when he was talking about his future?
I completely agree with you. I think he is part of that connective tissue that we really need at the moment, and we're starting to see a bigger gap between those type of players. You know, we're looking at James Forrest, we're looking at Callum McGregor. We've brought, you know, Kieran Tierney, KT back in, but obviously he's, you know, getting to the latter stages of his career as well. And you wonder who's next. You know, there's no obvious candidate as to who's next. People who really understand what the fibre and the and the nature of our club is. You know, they've been brought up on it. They've been weaned on it. This has been their, you know, their dream to play for their boyhood club, etc. And I'm looking for the next, you know, 2 or 3 Jamesy Forrest or Callum McGregors to come through. When you listen to Jamesy talking, he loves the club. He loves the fact he's still there. He's still playing a part. He loves the fact that he's scored, you know, in so many consecutive seasons. I mean, 17 consecutive seasons, you know, as a Celtic player is phenomenal. When you know, coming off the back of losing 2 absolute legends in John Fallon and John Clark, legacy comes to mind. And I did mention this to him at one point. It was about legacy. What does legacy actually mean? And you know, for him, it's about, well, all the success they've had, they still want to go and do more in Europe, for example. You know, build a legacy that goes beyond what we've already achieved. Because look at guys like Jamesy Forrest and Callum McGregor and Kieran Tierney. They've got nothing left to prove as Celtic players, but they still want to. They still want to go and show that they can elevate the club to the next level. But it's that attitude. It's that where your career progression is not just about you individually. It's also about, how can I elevate the club? How can I help the club get to that next level? And that really comes across with James. He cares. I think that's a key thing I would say, is he cares. And I think that's an admirable quality in a footballer.
One club man. I also think that, you know, if there's a cooperative agreement where players can jump back and forward between the 2 clubs, and that's obviously being introduced this season, I think you should be able to jump back and forward between the B team and the Celtic first team. Now, obviously, you've got the guys who are on the fringes of the Celtic first team who are not playing games, and that's not good, both mentally or physically, for any player. So last season, you look at all these guys who were on the fringes not playing. You know what? There's no box office about playing for the B team for a season pro. But, you know, I think that absolutely benefits the younger players in the B team. If you've got an old head in there, and I'm going to go back because people might be shaking their head thinking that's a bad idea. I remember in the conversation, second name drop of the day, Brian McClare. This was years ago. And one of the things he wanted to do when he was at the Manchester United Academy is for the reserve team, the equivalent of the reserve team, to have 3 old pros in there. One would be a defender, one would be a midfielder, one would be up top. Ex-Man U players or guys come to the end of their career already in the first team squad who might have taken a step down to a lower division club for a season or 2, and Man United are saying, no, you stay here and you're going to be part of the progression of the young guys. And I look at Jamesy Forrest, it's no jobs for the boys. We're not giving him a coaching role at the end of his, you know, we're saying you can play for another 18 months to 2 years at a much lower level. But it's not about you, James. It's about these kids. And there's certain players, I think, who would embrace that to be part of the club. We talk about a pathway. You're giving the young guys a pathway to the first team by learning through the experience. You're giving the older guys a pathway, perhaps, into coaching by playing out the last couple of years. I'd have much rather Scott Brown did that than go to Aberdeen, you know, Now, maybe Bruni wouldn't have wanted to. I don't know. Maybe he thought he had something to offer. And let's be honest, he did Rangers a few times. Anyway, talking of which, yes, we find ourselves in a really good position due to yesterday's great efforts by Stephen Presley, nicknamed Elvis. And he loves the fact that he's nicknamed Elvis. In fact, his lad is called Aaron, I believe. So, yes, we know what happened yesterday at Ibrox. A lot of Rangers fans probably don't because they've left by the time that the equaliser came and the goal was chopped off. But Celtic need to capitalise, and this is a big thing. Last weekend, we had the fan zone at Barra's Art and Design against St Mirren. I bumped into a good pal of mine, runs one of the stalls, Simon Weir. Big shout out to Simon. Hope you got your Oasis tickets last night, mate. And Simon's got a great store there, and you can get Acsom merch in there. And as I'm talking to Simon, Matt McGlone is there as well. And we were chatting away, and he was saying that he had put out something when Rangers dropped points against Motherwell, and loads of Celtic fans were like, it's a wee bit premature and all the rest of it. You can enjoy your rivals dropping points, Chris. You don't have to say, right, I don't want to tempt fate. I really enjoyed that yesterday. And yeah, Celtic do need to get the job done today, but you can still enjoy it, Chris. Come on.
You can. It's what football's all about. And look, it's banter, right? It's banter between rivals, and I think that's absolutely fine. It's healthy. We give it out. We take a fair amount of it at times. And you're right. I mean,
hadn't noticed, Chris. Hadn't I noticed?
We've got a job to do today. This is a potential banana skin game, not just from a banter standpoint, but there's a lot of trepidation, a lot of anxiety about our recruitment at the moment. There's maybe a slightly negative atmosphere around certain things that are going on at the club. And the best way to counter that is to go out there and put a performance on and get the 3 points and do the job on the pitch, essentially, and it alleviates some of that. It won't make it go away, but it just alleviates it for a bit. And the fact that our rivals dropped a couple of points yesterday. Look, it's really, really early in the season. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm, perfectly happy to admit that when Rangers have a poor performance or they drop points, I'm delighted. But I'm also very focused on wanting our team to go out there and take advantage of the opportunity now and try and assert a bit of the early dominance in the league. Because, we do have some concerns. We've got concerns about squad depth. We've got concerns about what's remaining in terms of the transfer window. We've got a big European tie coming up that we want to make sure we're not under pressure in the league, ahead of that. So I think there's a good opportunity here for the team to go out and build a little bit of a gap, give us the kind of bragging rights, if you like, over our rivals, which we've enjoyed for a number of years now for obvious reasons. And I think, you've got to enjoy these moments when they come, as you say. It's like, what's the point of being a football fan? It's not just about purely supporting your club. You support your club, but you also want to have a wee dig at your rivals, and that's what we do. But it's bad.
The wider issue for me, Chris, is that people want to tell you how to support your football team.
Yeah, that's
with the advent of smartphones and everybody having a voice on social media, everybody judges everybody else's support of their football club, and I think that you've just got to let everybody enjoy it the way that they want to enjoy it, quite frankly. And I enjoy Rangers dropping points. I always have done, and I always will do, and I'll revel in it. But then what you've got to do is you've got to get your own job done. That is what we're talking about today. Right, okay, last season when Nicholas Kuhn was tearing it up for the first half of the season, when Nicholas Kuhn was tearing it up against RB Leipzig, when he was one of the main factors in what we did against Bayern Munich, if you told me that we're going to start the following season having progressed in the Champions League, first by playing Yang in the first game of the season, second by playing 34-year-old James Forrest in the second game of the season, I would have been disappointed in that, Chris. Absolutely. And that's what you're touching on with the recruitment.
Yes.
But one point on Yang, talking to a very good friend of mine yesterday, and it really just encapsulates the importance of getting in to the Champions League, right? So if you're the football club and you say that, one of our main income streams is we buy cheap, we sell high, we have got a great player recruitment model, look at all this money we've made, right? And if you're going to shout that from the rooftops, brilliant. That's your key goal at the football club, right? Brilliant. You won't make as much money if you don't get into the Champions League on the players that you're making a profit on. Nicholas Kuhn, do you think the reason he went to Como for 17 million quid was because of a performance that he had against St Johnstone last season? No. Because Como wouldn't even have looked at that. And yeah, you can go on to whatever data analysis platform you're using and you can look at the entirety of the data. But what they want to know as if you can do it at the highest level. And the highest level of club football was the Champions League. And he proved last season that he could. Therefore, he got the £17 million move. So the club could potentially shoot themselves in the foot in more ways than one, Chris, when it comes to the player trading model. So you're Kuhn 17 million without the Champions League. How much is his transfer fee then? You know, because I think you're probably pushing up to 8 to 10 million. So the big issue here is a lack of vision. So they're putting all their eggs in the one basket of player recruitment. Look how great we are at making money on players. Yes, but a massive part of that, a massive element of that, is getting into the Champions League and doing it on that stage. We'll come back to that because obviously we've got the games coming up, Chris, but let's look at the rest of the team. Before I do it though, listen, we've had Oasis fever since 1994, never mind 2017, when Acsom started and we ripped off the logo, see above. Right, many years later, the guy who actually designed that logo, Brian Cannon, I had the absolute pleasure of speaking to him on a number of occasions on this channel, and he came up to Celtic Park over the last couple of seasons using my season tickets, and he's a proper Celtic man. And I asked him on camera if it was all right if we used the logo 6 years after we started using it. He said yes. He said it's absolutely fine. Okay, because they kind of ripped off Decca and Adidas anyway. So we've ripped off a kind of a homage to previous brands. But we've always had this. And we've interviewed Bonehead on the channel. And we've had our Screamer Celica. We've always had that touch into the music and the culture and that side of being a Celtic supporter. You might have noticed that I'm sporting this particular mug today. Beautiful artwork. Look at that. You can get that online. And that's not one of ours, actually, but I wish it was because it's a great design. And then I see it, and we've all seen the pictures. We've all seen the pictures of Noel Gallagher, with a Celtic scarf at Celtic Park for the 6-2 game. We've also, heard them singing Hail, Hail. He's at a gig somewhere in America. But yesterday, I loved this, and I'm going to share it. There's Anais Gallagher sporting the Celtic trackie on our Instagram, and there's young Gene, and he's wearing that top that's behind me, but he's got the sponsor on it. Gene Gallagher, looking every inch the rock and roll star. And when in Rome, I suppose, with the Iron Brew behind you. So there you go. It's all about Celtic. It's always been about Celtic. And if you enjoyed the last couple of nights, lucky you, and hopefully you can enjoy Tuesday night as well. But on that note, he did wear it well. There you go.
Look at that. It looks good. Beautiful. It looks good. I mean, I have to admit, he's just the shades just complete it. Actually, maybe that's what's missing for the away kit. All the players got to wear shades.
Right. So when I come back, I'm going to have my shades on. No, sorry to disappoint. Right. So this here. There's a link. This here is our competition prize. So we did our show on Friday night. We're going to do much more of those shows. We might even do some retrospective ones in the future as well. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a March release, and we'll do one then. So this jersey here is our first prize on the back of the show. And all we need you to do is you like the video that you're currently watching, you subscribe to Acsom, and in the comment section, you tell us the name of the player that reminds you of the original of that jersey. So the one that Henrik was wearing when he broke his leg. Mm-hmm. You put that name in the comment section. We've had some brilliant suggestions. Bratback started coming into the discussion. Mark Burchill, Henrik Larsson, Vidar Riseth, even Reggie Blinker has been mentioned. So, yes, let us know who that original jersey reminds you of. Like the video, subscribe to the video. Right, let's get back to the team then. So I said earlier on about Johnston and Tierney and how great they were actually going forward and creating chances at the weekend. Johnston probably would have been my man of the match had it not been for the performance of Scales. And this opens up another discussion point, right? So I was surprised that Scales started the first game, Chris. I thought Trusty did well during the pre-season. We had a chat on Friday with Alan Morrison, who told us the pros and cons of both players. And that was interesting as well, because he reckoned that Trusty was the better defender, but Scales was better on the ball in terms of ball progression, passing. And as a centre-half at Celtic, you need to have those tools in your cannon. Right, so Scales starts again today, and I had the audacity to say that he was my man of the match last week. So there was a comment, I just read it this morning on the YouTube, and I get back to as many people as I possibly can, but we do get 1,000 comments on the live and post live on YouTube alone, so it's difficult. But the point was, every time Scales has a half-decent game, there's a section of the Celtic support who think he's the man of the match. Well, my argument to that, Chris, is every time he has a decent game, right, there's a section of the Celtic support who can't see it.
Yeah.
Scales played well last week.
Scales,
he deserves his position in the defence. How happy are you with the back five today?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I think, I take a simpler view on it. I was obviously with you when Alan gave his analysis, and I think it's always interesting to hear those. And I probably agree with his viewpoint that I think Scales is a bit better with the ball, coming out for the back. But I just take a simpler view on it. If we take the Yang example, Yang's out of the team today because he had a bad performance. Surely if Scales had a good performance, he stays in the team. I just think it's keep it very, very simple. Scales did his job last week. He won every aerial duel just about. He, until he was moved to left back, he was really solid in there alongside CCV. It's his jersey to lose, and I always think that. I hate to see us break up a winning team unless you're bringing in a significantly, big upgrade in terms of quality. But for me, Trusty and Scales in terms of quality, based on the performances, I think are a very, very similar level. I agree with Alan's view that they've got slightly different characteristics. They bring something slightly different to the team. But fundamentally, I think a player remains in the side if he plays well. And when he doesn't play well, he drops out. And that's what we've seen happening with Yang. So, yeah, for me at the moment, I think the back five is the strongest one we've got at our disposal. Saying that with, we've heard Brendan Rodgers' comments on Pusey saying he's not quite up to speed yet. So looking forward to seeing him hopefully come in soon. But yeah, for me, this is our strongest backline.
Yeah, and like you say, he's in there on merit. I absolutely agree with that. People are asking where you get the mug. Go and check out Aidan Cragen Art. You can get the Roll With It Celtic mug, Liam and Noel on it. You can get that as a T-shirt as well. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's funny that do you know that song always reminds me of, remember the VHS of the 1998 one, the time where we stopped Rangers doing the 10, and I think it's Tosh McKinley's talking, then immediately you get this highlights piece and it's Roll With It going over it, and it's Hendricks scoring a free kick, and you just see the season coming together. So every time I hear Roll With It always just reminds me of that's when things clicked for Celtic.
Music is power. Music takes you to places, Chris, and it takes you to memories. It really does. And some people might say that PSG away 95 would be their earliest memory. Roll With It, and obviously one of the famous ones is 6-2, where we absolutely obliterated them. And Oasis were playing over that weekend. They were playing Glasgow, I think, on maybe the day or the day before it, and they were played Reading Festival, certainly as well, around about that time. So, yeah, that's where you can get it. The Aberdeen team is as follows, and this is a side, obviously, who beat us in the Scottish Cup final. And, yes, going back to what I said before, Chris, about, Celtic fans, just let people support the club the way they want to support them. I want revenge. This is football. Yes. They beat us in the cup final. They burst our treble. Of course I want revenge. Right. Mitov, Jensen, Milne, Dorrington, Devlin, Shinnie, Nielsen, Milanovic, Ukishi, Keskinen, and Yengi. Now, we had our friend Glenn from Red Tinted Glasses on Friday talking about the team. Papagai obviously having left the club for about 850 grand, I think. But the other guy of that team, you're looking at players like Shinnie and Nielsen who always approach games against Celtic as enforcers, and they do get away with a hell of a lot, Chris, and that's something the ref has to be strong on today.
He does, yeah. I'll have my heart in my mouth every time they put a challenge in on Kieran Tierney in particular. And we all remember what happened to Rio Hatate, last season ahead of the cup final. So, yeah, look, big physical team, lots of big guys. I think that's something that Jimmy Tolina's used to great effectiveness against us. We usually have quite a bruising game against them. But you're looking at, the players we brought in, people like Nygren, Tierney, absolute quality, proven quality. Actually, Nygren, for me, looks every inch a player who could actually waltz through that Aberdeen defence, potentially. When we spoke to Glenn spoke about the lack of firepower for Aberdeen, which is, from our perspective, is quite a positive, right? Because I think, our defence is looking pretty solid at the moment. So, yeah, I'm feeling confident, but the memory of that cup final, it looms large, and I do think we need to get that monkey off our back a little bit. Let's go out here and get a statement win. My personal view is I think this will be a tough game. I think we've got enough about us to win it, but I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park in any way, shape, or form. Would love to be proven wrong, but I think we have to. What we're going to need today is a bit of resilience, a bit of physical and mental resilience in this game. Stay in the game. Create chances, put a few of them away.
Yeah, absolutely. And a few of them away is what the wee green man thinks is going to happen. 2-0 to the boys, need to score first. I would like to see that. I've been very impressed with him.
Well, actually, yeah.
Very impressed indeed with him through pre-season and for his debut as well. Angel K, strong team. Looking for a show of intent today, boys. I'm keeping an eye on the screen to make sure we don't go over the whistle. And it's Henry Lally. Tough test ahead today. Let's hope the players are up for it. 3 points and down the road. Yeah, it's going to be a tough test, but I'm still going to predict that Celtic will win 3-1. Chris, give me a score.
I'll stick with my earlier prediction. I'll go 2-0. I think Negro will get an early goal, and then hopefully maybe a wee late goal from Yamada if he gets off the bench.
Nice. Or maybe even Kenny to celebrate his new deal.
Yeah,
thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Indeed. Everybody who's joined us today, well over 1,000. Thank you very much for getting involved. Remember, if you want to win this jersey, you want to be in it to win it, thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel. The name of the player that reminds you of the original jersey when we wore it back in the day, either with Umbro or NTL as the sponsor. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Join us at half-time on A Celtic State of Mind.